least 45. Kind of fat and mostly bald, but he was a good coach. He yelled a lot, but he laughed a lot too. He told them at the beginning of hockey season that if he got too cranky, they were to remind him they were only 8 years old. The team had picked Josh for that job. He was one of the co-captains, a responsibility that pleased him a lot, even though he would never say so. Nobody liked a bragger, Mom said. If you did your job well, there wasn't any reason to brag. A good job would speak for itself. Coach Olson started down the steps, tugging down the ear flaps of his hunting cap. The end of his nose was red from the cold. His breath came out of his mouth and went up around his head like smoke from a chimney. "You guys have rides home tonight?" They answered all at once, vying for the coach's attention by being loud and silly. He laughed and held his gloved hands up in surrender. All right. The rink's open if you get cold waiting. Ole's inside if you need to use the phone." Then Coach jumped into his girlfriend's car, the way he did every Wednesday, and off they went to have dinner at Grandma's attic downtown. Wednesday was Grandma's famous meatloaf night. All you can eat, it said on the menu. Josh imagined Coach Olson could eat a lot. Cars rumbled around the circular drive in front of the Gordy Knutson Memorial Arena, a parade of minivans and station wagons, doors banging, exhaust pipes coughing. Kids from the various squirt league teams chucked their sticks and equipment in trunks and hatches and climbed into the cars with their moms or dads, talking a mile a minute about the plays and drills they had worked on in practice. Matt's mom pulled up in their new transport, a wedge-shaped thing that to Josh looked like something from Star Trek. Matt scrambled for his gear and dashed across the sidewalk, calling a goodbye over his shoulder. His mother, wearing a bright red stocking cap, buzzed down the passenger window. "Josh, Brian, you guys have rides?" "My mom's coming," Josh answered, suddenly feeling eager to see her. She would pick him up on her way home from the hospital, and they would stop at the Leaning Tower of Pizza to get supper, and she would want to hear all about practice. Really want to hear. Not like Dad. Lately, Dad just pretended to listen. Sometimes even snapped at Josh to be quiet. He always apologized later, but it still made Josh feel bad. "My sister's coming," Brian called. "My sister Beth Butthead," he added under his breath as Mrs. Connor drove away. "You're the butthead," Josh teased, shoving him. Brian shoved back, laughing, 3 big gaps showing in his mouth where teeth had been. "Butthead, butt breath, butt face." Brian scooped up a mitten full of snow and tossed it in Josh's face, then turned and ran up the snow-packed sidewalk, bounded up the steps, and dashed around the side of the brick building. Josh let out a war whoop and bolted after him. Immediately, they were so involved in their game of attack, the rest of the world ceased to exist. One boy hunted the other to deliver a snowball up close in the face, in the back, down the neck of the jacket. After a successful attack, the roles reversed, and the hunter became the hunted. If the hunter couldn't find the hunted in a count of 100, the hunted scored a point. Josh was good at hiding. He was small for his age, and he was smart, a combination that served him well in games like Attack. He smashed Brian in the back of the head with a snowball, whirled and ran. Before Brian had shaken the snow off his coat, Josh was safely tucked behind the air conditioning units that squatted beside the building. The cylinders were covered with canvas for the winter months and blocked the wind. They sat well back along the side of the building, where the streetlights didn't quite reach. Josh watched as Brian ventured cautiously around a dumpster, snowball in hand, pouncing at a shadow, then drawing back. Josh smiled to himself. He had found the all-time best hiding place. He licked the tip of a gloved forefinger and drew himself a point in the air. Brian homed in on one of the overgrown bushes that lined the edge of the parking lot and separated the ice rink grounds from the fairgrounds. Tongue sticking out the side of his mouth, he crept toward it. He hoped Josh hadn't gone farther than the hedges. The fairgrounds was the creepiest place in the world this time of year, when all the old buildings stood dark and empty, and the wind howled around them. A car horn blared, and Brian swung around, heart pounding. He groaned in disappointment as his sister's rabbit pulled up around the curve. "Come on, hurry up, Brian. I've got pageant practice tonight." But nothing...